So I wanted to share one of the most damaging dynamics I've seen in relationships, besides like the super abusive ones, but just like a very, very common one that I've seen working for over a decade with mostly couples and family members, but I'm actually 100% sure it also happens in friendships. And so how you can prevent it. So this is about the way that we are giving. So say that, for example, let's say a family member asks me to help them with their computer and I'm super overworked already. But I say yes because I think I have an obligation. I have fear to say no. I think I have an obligation to say yes. Or maybe I'm afraid to feel guilty, anything like that. And now what happens is you open what I call an emotional bank account, which means that in my mind, I've paid something to you and now you have to pay me back. So next week, if I need someone to help me move my furniture out of the house or something like that, I might ask the same person. And if they say no, now I'll feel angry, disappointed, resentful, right? The main keyword that I usually use here is resentment. This is how resentment starts to grow. And of course, we want balance and reciprocity in relationships, right? We want people to support us as well. And that is totally valid, obviously. It's about the intention with which we are giving and with which we are hoping also to receive. And if that intention comes with, or that motivation is a better word, maybe that motivation is fear, then that does not lead to good results in the relationship in the long term. It can also cause health issues, of course, individually, but now if I even talking about the relationship, it's not helpful. So why do we act out of fear, obligation, and guilt? I call it fog as well, acting out of fog. So imagine being completely dependent on another person, random person, for all of your basic needs. So your physical safety, your food, shelter, love, everything. And then this specific person wants you to do something. Would you do it? I guess a smart thing would be to do it, right? If your survival depends on it, that's probably what you would do. And this is kind of what it's like to be a child, right? Like, I'm exaggerating maybe a little bit, but not that much, especially if also this care that you needed as a child was scarce. So maybe the love wasn't there all the time, or maybe there was also criticism, or maybe you didn't get the appropriate food or whatever it might be, right? So then what we start to do as kids is try to act in ways to keep whatever we are getting, right? To keep that good behavior that we want coming. So we try and please the parent. Secondly, we might be conditioned by a certain society that wants you to behave in certain ways as well, also depending on your gender, ethnicity, etc. So there's people pleasing coming out of that too. And then lastly, our personality might aggravate things, but this is a little tricky because, for example, if you're very empathic, it usually triggers, it's more likely that you have people pleasing as a sort of trauma response, as a coping mechanism, right? Because that's what we're talking about here. But it's a little tricky because empathy can also, like, learning to be very empathetic is sometimes what we have to do when we have parents that are violent, for example. We need to be able to predict people, and then we get very good at that. So is that, personality or not? Anyway, I'm going to leave that story, but I find it very interesting. So, but those three factors are at play, and so eventually lead us to behave out of fog, fear, obligation, and guilt, and then us to open the emotional bank account and wanting, maybe even subconsciously, for people to do the same with us, to basically to please us back as well. So how to get out of this? So first of all, we need to learn to recognize our inner no. Oftentimes this has gotten snowed under, like if we've been people pleasing for, however many decades, right? So I want to try and sort of guide you to that a little bit with this one question. I'm going to ask you to do something that I think you probably have a no for. And I want you to check your body, maybe already start doing that now. Just notice like your breath for a little bit. Notice any discomfort or any tension. You don't have to do anything with it. And so I'm going to ask you a question and just notice any sensations. So I want to ask you to, from here on, edit all my videos. It takes about 4 to 5 hours a week, I estimate, like including like uploading to YouTube, everything around it. And I want you to do it for free. You're not going to get any credits either. I just want you to do that. So notice how you feel. Notice like if I don't want something, my face goes like this. It's like almost like disgust. Like maybe it's different for you. Okay, so when we know that, we're gonna go to step 2, is to check whether there's something that is called psychological reversal. And what that means is that since you're probably no longer dependent on your parents, if you are, maybe it's a different story, or caretakers or whatever it might be, but if you're no longer dependent on them, how come you might still be doing this, right? Is it just a habit? The thing that's interesting is that sometimes we keep a habit because it's serving us in some sort of way, at least a part of us. And so we want to find out what that is, which part is being served here, and to take care of that part. Otherwise, it will be sort of sabotaging you as you're trying very hard to get out of this, right? So when I work with clients one-on-one, I use EFT tapping. I've mentioned this a few times now because I think it's very effective in breaking patterns. So I add this sort of to nonviolent communication. So usually I work through a whole list of questions, but I'm just going to give 3 to you, just for you to check yourself. What might be, in which ways is people pleasing you, right? Is serving you in some sort of way. So one part might be, and this usually people are kind of aware of this, like you're afraid to lose relationships. You want to be liked. You want to belong. So there is a part of you that thinks you might not actually feel that good. Maybe you think you can't deal, or maybe this is related to reality as well. Maybe it's hard for you to deal with feelings of guilt. Maybe it's hard for you, like when people judge you, to deal with how that feels for you. And so that's one area to look at. If we haven't taken care of this, ideally like on a more subconscious level, this will still sabotage you. Another thing is, do I have the resources? Do I have enough friends? Do I have enough support to go through this change that this is about, right? People pleasing it's a big pattern. It's such a friendly sort of soft word that is used so much, but it's really a trauma response. So yeah, it's something to take seriously in that sense. And lastly, there is often an element of, will I still be myself when I go through this change? If you've been people pleasing again for a long time, if you've been doing these half yeses, it can be seem like it's almost part of your identity. And maybe it is, right? And maybe you don't know who you are without it. And that can be really daunting. Like, we need to be able to embrace the not knowing and the sort of blank canvas that can be an opportunity, but it can also be a little scary if you don't know anymore who you are. So that's something to pay attention to as well. Now, step number 3 is that you need to know how to express a no in a way that is ideally somewhat connecting, right? Like I highly encourage saying no in whatever way you can. It's better than saying yes or like doing stuff out of obligation. But it usually helps people, what I see with my students, if they have a plan, if they have some trust that the way that they're going to express themselves is more likely to be received well. And so this is what I go into in my webinar called NVC for People Pleasers. There is one live next week, but if you watch this video later, there's also a section recorded webinars on my website. So because it's a little bit of like a step plan in and of itself, how to do that. So I'm going to dive into that there. And if you do those 3 things, you will slowly, and starting with the least challenging no's, just like the no that you maybe had for me, but you knew that you didn't have to say that to me anyway, right? That's more easy to practice with that. Lastly, there are several ways that we're people pleasing, right? So the emotional bank account is just one example. So I have another video where I cover more situations and different sentences, different phrases that are helpful to have in mind. I'll put that video here so you can watch that as well. And I'd love to see you at the webinar so I can maybe work with your specific challenges around people pleasing, and I'd love to do that. All right, bye-bye. And please send this video to someone who could use it as well.